Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blog Runner Everything, and welcome back to the channel. And first of all, apologies for this coming out a bit late. It's going to be more of a match reaction than a match review, I guess. But as hectic as Barcelona had it against Atleti, last night, I had it hectic as well. It was a bit of a crazy night, so I couldn't give my my match review at the time that I would have preferred. But nonetheless, I still have thoughts. I'm still going to share that. So this will be more of a reaction, like I said, to everything I saw go down, and also maybe some of the stuff we're seeing on the socials, because as usual, Kool-Aids are talking after a loss. And man, I just got reminded why at some point I constantly used to say that the Coolaverse is one of the most toxic fan bases ever. Honestly, I think just the two El Clasico teams between Real Madrid and Barcelona, you have two of the most toxic fan bases that you're ever going to see, because of just the level of overreaction that comes out of losing a match. Granted, losing in this way is unacceptable. It's not even something that like all right. And I'll get into my thoughts on that, and also into the thoughts and some of what I'm seeing from other people, and why I think it's still going beyond. All right. So yesterday, honestly speaking, I only watched the first half in full. And when I tell you that with Barcelona just being 2-0 down, I was in the group chat talking about, you know, um, if Barca don't concede 4 or 5 at the end of tonight, it would be a miracle. And honestly speaking, I was correct, was I not? Because by halftime, Barcelona conceded 4 goals. And honestly speaking, like, 2 of those goals were just, poor giveaways from Barca. But then, even with all of that, Atleti still had enough chances to have scored another 2 goals. You remember Jules Koundé making that clearance off the line, and just, Griezmann as well blazing some shots over the bar and the likes. But man, I think the only conclusion that we have for sure from Barcelona is that that golden kit just has to be retired for the rest of the season. These guys do not have Mamba mentality, okay? What we saw from Barca was just typical of what we've been seeing recently, extremely slow start in the first half. And look, you can't keep doing that, okay? You can't keep running this gimmick of the other team is going to go first, then we're going to start doing a thing. Like, no, that's not how it works. Now, at the end of the day, excuse me, when you look at some of, like, the overall stats, it doesn't look so bad from Barcelona. It doesn't look like it was a 4-0 game, right? I mean, you had 4 big chances versus 2 big chances. 2.39 xg versus 1.8 x, 83 xg. And the Atleti goalkeeper as well making saves which were needed. And you could think, hey, maybe this was a 4-2 game and not a 4. But look, in reality, this was a 4-0 game, and it could have been, and maybe probably should have been, worse for Barcelona here. And of course, then comes the second half. As we know, Barcelona, second half, they play better, and a lot of stuff goes down. And this is where I'm going to have to just, give a bit of my disclaimer, and just, reiterate my position. Generally speaking, I don't rave about refereeing decisions. At least it's not something that I like to do. I mean, I know in my last review with the Atleti match, I did talk about the refereeing on the day, but that was just, that was just how frustrating it was watching that referee in action, I guess. You could argue last night the referee was just as frustrating, but I'm not even going to talk too much about the referee stuff or the VAR stuff. I mean, yes, Giuliano Simeone should have been sent off in this match, no doubt. And I mean, yes, Barcelona's Kubarsi goal should have stood. We're not going to go too much into that. I mean, I saw somebody, throwing around a stat on Twitter saying that in Spain, VAR has had 5, decisions where goals were wrongfully disallowed in the past 2 seasons, since the automatic offside was introduced. And allegedly, all those 5 incidences have involved Barcelona. I don't know how true that is, but that's something that I've seen. but it's not something that I'm going to, feed into too much, because at the end of the day, it's not the referee who defends, okay? The referee is not our defender. The referee is not our striker. The referee is not the guy who's going missing in big moments, in our midfield. All right? The midfield. I felt that the midfield was a little too light. Okay? You're going to Atleti's home ground. If there's one thing Atleti are going to give you, it's an intense performance from their midfield, regardless of who they pick. I know they've got Barrios out. I know they've got guys out. But if it's Atleti and they're at home, they're always going to give you a tough time in the middle. And, look, I like Mark Casado. I was a big fan of him, especially last season. But this season, you have to admit, he's not been up to scratch. He just seems to have lost. I don't know if it's some of his confidence. I know here we're looking at his stats and his passing is looking good, but the thing which did him in yesterday was the duels, and just the moments when he didn't, get the ball to where it was supposed to be. Because those are the moments that Barcelona suffered the most. Another person who honestly was looking way too lightweight in that midfield was Frankie de Jong. I expected much better from Frankie de Jong than I saw last night. He's the take the bull by the horns kind of midfielder Barcelona has. He's really the only one like that in some respect, in that, he can literally take the ball from defense to offense, right? And he can take the game to the opposition. He didn't look in any way like he was up for a fight. And honestly, I was looking at that midfield and I was thinking, where's Marc Bernal? Why did Marc Bernal not start this match? Also, I was thinking, why did we start with Dani Olmo at left wing? I think Fermin does way better at left wing, and I think Dani Olmo has been playing pretty decently in the middle of the park. So, either start Dani Olmo at, as like in a double pivot, or put Dani Olmo at the 10, but not this left wing stuff. He's just not built for it. And I mean, then of course we have to talk about Barcelona's catastrophe when it comes to the striking department. Listen to me, Deco. You cannot be telling me that you have watched everything we've seen in big matches this season from Ferran Torres, from Robert Lewandowski, and you still think it's a good idea to keep Ferran and to renew Lewandowski for one more season. Like, we need to stop doing these, bro, I got your back type of contracts. Like, we're renewing Christensen for 1 year because he's injured. And, we think that it would be bad to just not renew him because he's injured. Which, why? If I could ask, maybe. I know we're not Real Madrid who make cutthroat decisions like, just like that. But even still, like, even though we're the passion team and we like to, put our heart before, our brains in making business decisions, there's nothing that suggests to me that Christensen should be given a contract, because you don't even know if this guy is going to be healthy. Maybe give him a pay as you play type contract. I'll be cool with that. But look, you can't be looking at what we have right now with Ferran and Robert Lewandowski and you're confident that, next season they're what we need. So, Deco, my guy, we need to really rethink this and find me a proper strike. There was absolutely no presence from Barcelona up front in that first half, even with both Lewandowski and Ferran Torres up front. So, we need something better. But anyway, I could probably just rant on and on and on. But, I'll talk just briefly about some of the reaction we're seeing. Not so much from the Madrid side. I mean, look at Arbeloa trying to look cool because, yesterday, or was that Wednesday, Flick made the remark when he was being asked about Barca having only played, lower division teams and that taking away from the meaning of the Copa del Rey. And Flick was like, ask Madrid about that. So now they ask Arbeloa about Barca losing 4-0 and he says, hey, ask Flick's Barca, which is like, yeah, that would be cool, bro, if you didn't get knocked out, you in particular, just by the same team that, moving on from that, this is probably one of the things which, we're seeing a lot of. And for me, this is pretty crazy. But, of course, this is kind of what you get with reactionary Twitter takes and all of that. They out here bringing up, they're saying Lamine Yamal is not doing anything against big teams this season. And, it's just, for me, it's pretty crazy to have people pulling up Yamal of all people because we all saw what he was doing last season, Inter, Real Madrid, name them all, Bayern Munich. You don't know what this guy was doing. But hey, we're not going to talk too much. We're not going to dwell too much about that. There is also, of course, something which I think it's a bit cringe from Barca, which is with their, a Twitter account. Although, I guess what else could you expect Barca to be doing? But, their Twitter account is going a bit too hard on this, we're coming back thing, not impossible, difficult, but not impossible. And they did a whole 6 reasons to believe in a comeback against Atletico. And it's like, guys, okay, it's cool, right? But just tone it down a bit. Okay, we need a bit of realism right now because what we had in effect was a reality check. Okay, a reminder that what we have at our disposal right now is just not good enough. So I don't know. I don't really know what else I can add to that. But what I will say is that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There was a statement as well from Laporta, who of course has now stepped down as Barca president pending elections. And he's talking about, it's a historic opportunity to make a great comeback at Spotify Camp Nou on March the 3rd. And it's like, listen, man, let's just, I guess you don't really, I understand why he's doing it, but it's not really necessary, man. We live in a day and age, unfortunately, where this is most likely just giving, ammunition to haters. So please, okay, don't do this to us. And of course, we also have, other fans who, as usual, weighed in. This was this is a big PSG channel, and, mocking Barca with all of their, we're going to come back remontada, just, throwback saying same vibes as Bellingham before Arsenal. And there's all this other stuff here as well, talking about can Barca make a comeback and all of that. And, it's just funny because Mr. PSG was over here laughing, and PSG tonight played against Stade Rennes, and my man was making a 4-1 prediction, a 4-1 win as a prediction. Do you want to see how that ended up for PSG? Do you think PSG won 4-1? I mean, we could have a quick look right over there. You know what I'm saying? We could have a quick look. This is today's matches. I mean, oh my goodness, this internet connection is embarrassing me. And look at that, PSG lost by 3-1 against Stade Rennes, and should is it Lens, if I'm not mistaken? Should they win this weekend? Yeah, should Lens win this weekend, PSG will be in second. So, crazy. Dude was mocking Barca only for this team of his to get cooked. So anyway, enough of all this. That's my reaction. Let me know your thoughts on the match and how it went. Aside from that, I thank you all for tuning in. Have a great day and Forza Barca.